Three brave veterans have come forward to share their personal stories surrounding the emotional aftershocks of war.
Strongest memories would be in November of 2004 when my unit was sent to get rid of all the insurgents that remained in the city of Fallujah. We spent a little over a month in the city, day to day, clearing out houses, going from one door to the next, from one house to the next, and making sure that there weren't any insurgents in there, and if there was, then we'd get rid of them. I had what I found out to be called intrusive thoughts, and I had the same image of the first person I killed going through my mind every day on a repeat cycle.
Post-traumatic stress is as ancient as war itself. Labeled in the Civil War as soldier's heart, the First World War as shell shock, and in World War II, it was called battle fatigue.
PTSD, it'll manifest its symptoms in a number of ways. For example, myself, my own symptoms were initially depression when I left the military, and a lot of insomnia. I wasn't able to sleep. But I lost a lot of social skills that I had before leaving for the war, and I think a lot of it had to do with being so close to death, and almost having like a born-again feeling when I came back of questioning whether or not I was supposed to be alive. I would take the bus. It was the 14 mission bus here in San Francisco, and this bus ran all night. And I was on this bus quite a few times, and I realized that between the hours of maybe midnight or so until 4 in the morning, that this bus would be filled with homeless people. 3 or 4 of them would be strapped down in seat belts to keep their wheelchairs from moving, and they would sleep on the bus in order to stay warm. San Francisco is a cold place. Many times I slept in the park with 2 jackets on, a sweatshirt, and 2 pairs of jeans, and I was on the bus to my cousin's house, and I looked around, and I realized that I was homeless, like these people were on the bus, and you know, I just it was just a moment. I stepped out of myself and realized that I was a homeless person in San Francisco.
I can tell you the exact date. January 7th, 2001. I'd been unemployed for probably about 4 months before that because my employer didn't like what I was doing or how I was acting or how I was, and I didn't realize half the things that I was doing. I'd lash out and passive-aggressive type behavior. I'd hear, you know, my performance reports and evaluations were going downhill. After that particular date, I just picked up the telephone that day and I called up and told them I was in the corner. I didn't know where I was going, but I'm in the corner. I can't get out. And the only way I can compare that would be to Forrest Gump out running and running and running and running, because I did that for at least 25 years.
It took one of my neighbors, a Vietnam veteran, to tell me that I could go get treatment now, or I could wait 20 years and have my life fall apart and then get treatment. The mindset we were taught from day one in basic training in boot camp was to get it done, to suck it up, and to put aside, your discomfort, for the sake of the mission to get things done.
I was in denial whether or not I had PTSD or not. You kind of come to grips with what PTSD is and what it's labeled as in the military as well, and what it actually is. And then you learn to accept that certain things you just come back with. You take it from wherever you were deployed, and it lives with you when you get back home.
You just work at it and work at it and work at it, and the hardest part is facing it.
I kind of felt guilted into going to a vet center and talking to a counselor. But I went in, and as soon as I went in and started talking to a counselor, it was very relieving. The minute I walked in, I was greeted by another Marine who had served in Vietnam. And Marines, always like to joke around with each other. We're a bunch of thick-skulled, stubborn people. So just having that sense of familiarity with someone already was nice.
Without this group therapy, individual therapy, and what I'm doing right now, I probably wouldn't even be alive now.
From the start, when I first found NCIRE, I knew I was dealing with a lot of professionals. I knew I was dealing with psychologists. I was dealing with doctors, people who were educated on almost the main reason why I was homeless. And I think I knew I was in good hands. So I urge returning veterans of this war and past wars even to seek help that they need, because the help is out there.
Things have been going a lot better for me personally, just since I've been able to talk about my experiences and maybe hearing my own words or trying to put them in a logical sequence helps me process it better and make more sense out of the chaos that I didn't understand back then. And besides that, things are improving, but there's still times where I have to leave a movie because I get too anxious. And I still hear bad news. Friends I had in the Marine Corps are still dying. I'm going to a funeral this weekend of one of my friends. And I don't think these conditions that a lot of us have with post-traumatic stress will improve that much until things are over.
In about a month or two of doing the counseling sessions, things were starting to look better. And a lot of things just fell into place.
I think it's really important when you're talking to someone who's a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan that you keep the politics out of it. A lot of time the politics get in the way, how you feel about the war, and people start forgetting that there's a human side to it. Whether people are going over there are for the war or against it, there's a big toll it takes on their life, emotionally, spiritually, and sometimes physically. And those everyday experiences can get lost in the bickering that goes back and forth from the left wing to the right wing. And people who are welcoming home their veterans, family members or close friends, should try to ignore the political side of it and just focus on the human side of it and just tell the people welcome home.
Walking like a one-man army, fighting with the shadows in your head, living out the same old moment.
San Francisco's VA Medical Center sits where the ocean meets the bay. I'm Dr. Lynn Pulliam, the Director of Research at the San Francisco VA Medical Center that houses NSER, the Veterans Health Research Institute, the largest nonprofit institute dedicated to veterans' health through research. Working here, you will find 220 scientists doing research that directly helps our veterans. Dr. Thomas Nyland is the director of the Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder program at the San Francisco VA Medical Center.
There's lots of evidence that PTSD has been a part of every war. We know that war changes people. It changes everybody. There's no way you can serve in war and not be changed by it.
PTSD is confusing for many military families. Can Dr. Nyland explain what PTSD is?
PTSD really involves memory. They experience a life-threatening event. It has a tremendous impact on their view of the world, their sense of safety in the world. And typically what happens is that people feel haunted by the experience in the form of memories and nightmares, and they just navigate the world with a sense of apprehension. They don't like crowds, they don't like circumstances where they are not aware of what's happening 360 degrees around them. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable being around civilians. They only feel safe when they're around other veterans. It's a sense of disillusionment, that they no longer view the world as a safe place.
What treatments are available for PTSD?
Really what we're trying to help people do is to manage their reactivity to reminders of their trauma. We know there are a number of effective treatments. Some of it involves one-on-one individual treatment. Some of it involves group interactions, which can be very powerful. Family therapy is extremely effective. There are some medications that can sometimes help with quelling some of the extreme biological reactivity. The real challenge for clinician scientists is to find the right way of mapping the best treatment to the individual. And the other thing is that very pragmatically, we really teach people the importance of connecting to other people. They're not alone. There are many veterans who've experienced this, and ultimately what we're trying to do is to get people to feel connected again to humanity, to not allow yourself to isolate, to bunker down, but to connect to their friends, connect to their family, and that you can talk about events that happen to you without feeling that you're going to be overwhelmed by the process.
How do you recommend getting around the stigma associated with PTSD?
Stigma is a barrier for people to seek out help. The more that people speak out about having PTSD and advocating treatment, like the people you interviewed, that helps hugely.
It was ingrained in my mind that if I, admitted to having PTSD, that it would be something that it was something negative, I had to be in full denial of it.
The stigma of getting treatment had stuck with me because since the first day at boot camp, we were taught that if you have a problem, you figure out how to fix it yourself, and you block out your discomfort and you carry on with the mission. And with that mindset, getting help because I was too weak, it didn't really make sense to me, and it was going against everything I think I'd been taught.
Often it's other veterans too who recognize it and they say, I'm really concerned about you, I want you to get help, and who can reassure them that the help is not threatening, that it's effective, and that they have nothing to fear by coming in to get treatment.
Many of our vets end up in high-risk behaviors. Why?
We know that PTSD is associated with increased aggressive behavior, and it is part of the irritability. It's where they're responding to really minor provocation with anger. Maybe part of the that kind of arousal response that was adaptive when they were soldiers in a war zone, but no longer is adaptive, coming back and, interacting with their families and coworkers.
Numerous examples of high-risk behaviors with Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. Normally it's what it is a search for an adrenaline rush, and they try to find that in the quickest, easiest, cheapest route. So we see a lot of motorcycle riding at high speeds. We see a lot of drinking in large increments and binge drinking almost, and then as a result getting into bar fights and wanting to just kind of stimulate themselves. What we see them trying to find is that adrenaline rush that compares to their combat experience while in Iraq or Afghanistan. They've just experienced war, and the stimulation that comes with that is just surreal. And they don't find that going out to get a cup of coffee at Starbucks has any value. They don't find that going to work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, has any value. And so really the high-risk behaviors, they're trying to find something that has value for them. They're trying to find that new high, that new meaning in their life.
What can friends and families do?
Family involvement is a very powerful, positive tool we have to help soldiers recover. That their concern is something that can really help make it easier for veterans to seek out treatment, and to reassure them that they're not going to be frightened by hearing about the experiences or the feelings that they're having.
Come to a vet center, use our program here, and to sit down with a counselor and to just kind of explore what PTSD is, what readjustment is, what are the psychological effects of war, how it would affect any normal human being. And so just kind of taking a really close look at what their needs are of that son or daughter, whether it's just a stable environment to kind of allow themselves time to think and organize themselves, or for resources to help them get through college or to find a job or to find housing or to take care of their family.
Everybody has a stake in enhancing access to treatment, removing stigma. Because it's not just the veteran that's feeling better, but the families feel better too.
Are there any actual changes in the brain from PTSD?
There are some imaging findings that suggest that there are areas of the brain that are smaller in PTSD. And they're small differences, but they've been replicated in a number of different places.
What you see here is a shot of a brain. You see here the eyes and the skull, and here the brain. And a particular region which is of interest to us is the hippocampus, shown in here in yellow. And here is a zoom out of this region. We have two hippocampi, left and right, therefore the different colors, which have this shape. And we think that this region is impacted by post-traumatic stress disorder in such a way that people with this disorder have smaller hippocampi. That's our our finding, and but of course it is not clear whether a smaller hippocampus is really the cause or the effect of post-traumatic stress disorder. This will be a subject for ongoing studies.
One of the most exciting advances in neurosciences in the last decade is the understanding that the brain is quite adaptable. And even adult brains can grow. And so the real important thing that we want to test is, does effective treatment actually restore the brain to its normal state?
What can scientific research tell us about PTSD?
I think there have been a number of breakthroughs. I think we are learning more about how the brain reacts to people feeling triggered by memories of their trauma. That we know that we're learning that there are areas in the brain that get very activated when a person is, for example, given a verbal narrative of their trauma. That we know that it elicits a strong response in a part of the brain that's involved with our emotional reactivity. We also know that there are areas in the brain that are helpful for memory retrieval and for maintaining sort of cognitive control, you know, when they are feeling triggered. I think what we are hoping to find is that through, for example, a blood test that can allow us to measure what genes are actually turned on and off, will give us an idea of what types of biological pathways are mobilized or recruited in those people with PTSD. When you think of a diagnostic test, you really think of like a blood test where you know, gives you a clear, unambiguous result. It's positive, it's negative. That would be perfect, but I don't think that's realistic. I think what we're looking at with blood tests are really, does it give us more of a window of what aspect of biology is affected in PTSD? If we know more about the biology of PTSD, we can come up with better treatments. What we have here is an incredibly strong neuroimaging group and an incredibly strong ability to look at the brain with far more resolution than we ever could before. There's no question that high field strength imaging has just opened up the view of the brain. I think it's the difference between looking at the stars from a ground-based telescope to, you know, seeing the stars in the Hubble Space Telescope. Another really exciting change is that PTSD used to be only in the realm of psychiatry. It was only the psychiatrist interested in that and writing about it. And what's really changed is that PTSD research and enhancing treatment has become really a part of the large mission of the VA, and it's bringing in talent from across many disciplines. You know, neuroimmunologists and physicists and cardiologists and neurologists, and that is a big change, and that's something that's really incredible about this environment here, the NCER and UCSF, that there's a lot of talent across many different disciplines, and there really is a critical mass of people who bring lots of different things to the table to answer scientific questions in ways that a single investigator would never be able to do on their own.